Hello Year 9 and welcome to another week of An Inspector Calls. And this week you may be slightly scared because you can immediately see the word assessment, which is why I've tried to distract you with my beautiful, if somewhat ridiculous cats and my actual face on a PowerPoint. This is the modern age Year 9. Appreciate my lockdown roots. It's beautiful. So, I thought it might be a little bit easier to talk you through stuff now that I've worked out how to put my face in things. So I'm going to try and talk you through how to do this. Please don't panic. I know that a lot of you see the word assessment and you freak out. Obviously, this is a particularly challenging time. It's not going to go for schools. It's just so that I have a gauge of whereabouts you are, and we do need to keep practicing our extended writing skills ready for next year when we do return to normal. So, our plan of action for today is the do now, as always. Then I'm going to talk you through the assessment question. Then we'll plan for it together, and then you'll write it independently. So that is our plan of action for today. Definitely having technical difficulties. Hold on. Hey. Okay. So as always, you have a weekly retrieval quiz. Access it via Teams. It will tell me once you've completed it. So I'm technologically ignorant and I am looking at all of your responses, but I can't actually work out how to mark it. With the assignments, it's much easier because I can just type stuff. But with your weekly retrieval quiz, it has issues with me leaving feedback and I get very confused. So I'm not ignoring it, and I do really appreciate that you're still kind of going in, logging on, having a little practice of what you've learned the week before. So please keep doing it. So if you need to, pause the video here, go away and do the quiz and then come back. Okay, so this is the question, and I'm going to get you to write this down in your exercise books or on your Word document, wherever you're completing your work at the moment. And the question is, how is Gerald presented in this extract? For those of you that are thinking, which one's Gerald again? He's the one that was engaged to Sheila and had an affair with Daisy Renton. So a lot of us have a little panic when we see the word presented. It's not really part of our vocabulary. You don't say, oh, how is Jack presented in the morning? It just means, what's that character like? How do they behave? And as an audience, what do we think of them? So how is Gerald presented in this extract? Write that question down now. Pause the tape if you have to. Okay, so normally you just have to put up with my voice reading the extract to you, but now you get my face as well. So I'll read it out to you, follow along. If you find this particularly cringeworthy, you can just skip it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So it starts like this. Gerald says, I should probably say this is the part where the inspector's asking him how he came to meet Daisy Renton. He says, I happened to look in one night after a long day, and as the show wasn't very bright, I went down into the bar for a drink. It's a favourite haunt of women of the town. Women of the town? Yes, but I see no point in mentioning the subject, especially... It would be much better if Sheila didn't listen to this story at all. But you're forgetting. I'm supposed to be engaged to the hero of it. Go on, Gerald. You went down into the bar, which is a favourite haunt of women of the town. I'm glad I amuse you. Come along, Mr. Croft. What happened? I didn't propose to stay long down there. I hate those hard-eyed, dough-faced women. But then I noticed a girl who looked quite different. She was very pretty. Soft brown hair and big dark eyes. My God. What's the matter? Sorry, I've suddenly realised, taken it in properly, that she's dead. Yes, she's dead. And probably between us, we killed her. Sheila! Don't talk nonsense! You wait, Mother. Go on. She looked young and fresh and charming and altogether out of place down here. And obviously she wasn't enjoying herself. Old Joe Meggerty, half drunk and goggle-eyed, had wedged her into a corner with that obscene fat carcass of his. There's no need to be disgusting. And surely you don't mean Alderman Meggerty? Of course I do. He's a notorious womanizer as well as being one of the worst sots and rogues in Brumley. Quite right. Well, really, Alderman Meggerty, I must say we're learning something tonight. Of course we are, but everybody knows that horrible old Meggerty. A girl I know had to see him at the town hall one afternoon, and she only escaped with a torn blouse. Sheila! Go on, please. The girl saw me looking at her and then gave me a glance that was nothing less than a cry for help. So I went across and told Joe Meggerty some nonsense, that the manager had a message for him or something like that, got him out of the way, and then told the girl that if she didn't want any more of that sort of thing, she'd better let me take her out of there. She agreed at once. Okay, so we're thinking about how Gerald was presented in the extract, and remember, you can access the extract over Teams and hopefully on Go for Schools if it'll let me upload it. So you don't have to keep skipping back and forwards in the video, have the document open. So how is Gerald presented? So what I'd like you to do is write down between 3 and 5 words or phrases that you could use to describe Gerald just based on this extract alone. So you could have he's caring, kind, shallow, anything you like, however you think he behaved just in that extract. So write it down, leave some space around it, pause the video now. It was a trick. I've already written some words down. You don't have to use these, but I know some of you might be a bit overwhelmed or a bit stuck, so I've given you some ideas that you can use. So one of my words is defensive, and that I'm referring to the bit where he says to Sheila, "I'm glad I amuse you." We could have kind, he tries to help Daisy. Deceitful, because he's lying about the affair. Compassionate, he sees that the girl's in trouble, wants to help. Charming, because he goes and rescues her. Ingratiating, which means he's kind of trying to win the approval of the inspector. He's making himself sound like some sort of hero. And good one with some fancy words, ostensibly altruistic. And if someone's an altruistic person, they're a good person, they do stuff to help other people, like, I don't know, help an old lady with their shopping. You don't get anything out of that, but you're helping someone else. So to be ostensibly altruistic means that on the surface, Gerald seems like he's a really good person. He seems like he cares about others. But it could be argued that actually underneath, he's not that caring and kind after all. So use a couple of those if you want, but if you've already got your 3 to 5 words or phrases, stick with them, that'd be even better. Okay, your next step, and all of this work is basically you planning your assessment, your extended piece of writing. So your next step is to find a quote from the extract to support each of your words or phrases. And I've given you some ideas here. In an ideal world, you would use your own quotes, your own words. But if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed and you're not really sure what to do, feel free to use mine. So you might think, actually, Gerald's quite an alright character. I'll maybe use these ones, or if you don't like him, or you might even mix it up. So if you like Gerald, you might say he's presented as upset when he says, "My God." You could say he's presented as heroic. Old Joe Meggerty, half drunk and goggle-eyed, had wedged her into a corner with that obscene fat carcass of his. You could describe him as chivalrous. Daisy gave me a glance that was nothing less than a cry for help, so chivalrous just being like a gentleman. If you're not a fan of Gerald, you might perceive his actions a little bit more like this. So you might argue that he's quite a shallow character. She was very pretty, soft brown hair and big dark eyes. He said he hated those like fat old tarts around the town. He's quite defensive, "I'm glad I amuse you," and ostensibly altruistic. She gave me a glance that was nothing less than a cry for help. So I've just got my keywords there in the black bold, and then some quotes that can support them. So I'd like you to go through this process too. Use mine if you must, but I'd much prefer it if you could come up with your own ideas. So pause it here if you have to. Okay, so I've got 2 slides to help you tackle writing the assessment, the extended piece of writing. This slide is for those of you that aren't feeling particularly confident. You feel like you need a little bit of support because it's been a while since we've done something like this. So I've put some sentence starters on there to help. So on the right hand side, I've written the success criteria. So the stuff you need to do to kind of achieve the brief, if you will. So you'll need a little introduction, basically telling me what he's like. 3 main paragraphs, and in each of those paragraphs, you're going to need a clear topic sentence, so answering the question, an embedded quote, which means putting a quote in a sentence, reference to a technique if there is one, developed analysis, so remember that's just what the quote shows, and a link to the context if it's relevant, so maybe talking about the class differences in 1912 Britain, or I don't know, the disparity in power between the genders. You could argue that Gerald was just a man exploiting a woman. So stuff like that. And then finally, for your conclusion, it's just a really brief summary of your main points. So overall, Gerald is presented as kind, caring and charming, or whatever it is you're arguing. And on the left-hand side over here, I've got some sentence starters you can use. Those of you that are looking to challenge yourself a little bit more, or if you're quite confident with the task, I probably wouldn't use this slide, but it's still useful to go over. So for your intro, your sentence starters could be, in this extract, Gerald is presented as kind. At this moment, the inspector is interrogating Gerald about how he knew Daisy Renton. And then these could be your main paragraph, so aim to do this 3 times. So at the beginning of the extract, Gerald is portrayed as a gentleman. This is demonstrated when he says, she gave me a look but was nothing less than a glance for help, or something like that, I can't remember quite exactly. This suggests that he understands when someone is in danger and he wants to help them. Priestley might be doing this to make the audience sympathise with Gerald, and at this point the audience would think that Gerald's actually quite a good character. He seems like quite a decent person, he wants to help people. So you do that 3 times, and then for your conclusion, overall the character of Gerald is X, Y, Z, whatever your points are. So I would keep this part of the video up as you're writing so that you can use those topic sentences if you'd like to. But the next slide I'm going to show you another way to approach it, which is if you're a bit more confident. Okay, don't be scared of all the colours. You know how I feel about colour coding. So this is more of a GCSE approach to the question, and what our exam board AQA likes us to do is approach the question with a what, how, why approach, and I've detailed that on the left-hand side. So the what is make a statement that directly answers the question. So what is Gerald like? Then the how is a quote that supports what you've said. Then you need to zoom in on the quote, you need to explode it, which just means you do a detailed analysis. Then you think about the effect on the audience, an alternative interpretation, so how else could we read this? And then the writer's intention, so what was Priestley trying to achieve by presenting Gerald in this way? Why did he do that? And you might want to think about the overall play at that point. And then your second why is your link to context. So thinking about a 1945 audience, the 1912 setting, what sort of things would be relevant at this point? And on the right here, I've got an example of what one main paragraph might look like. Obviously, you'll still need to do an introduction and conclusion, but I just couldn't fit everything on the side. So on the right is an example of a main paragraph. In this extract, Gerald is depicted as ostensibly altruistic and deceitful. This is demonstrated when he says that Daisy Renton gave him a glance that was nothing less than a cry for help. This phrase suggests that Daisy was in need of help, and Gerald gallantly came to her rescue. At this point, the audience may feel that Gerald is a chivalrous gentleman. However, this could also incite cynicism, as we may suspect that Gerald is just being ingratiating and trying to present himself as a hero to the inspector. Priestley could be showing his audience that although Gerald came across as respectful and doting towards Sheila in Act 1, his true colours are now being revealed. It could be argued that Priestley showing the duplicitous nature of the upper classes and the difference between their public facade and their private actions. Furthermore, Priestley could be highlighting how the rich exploit the poor, with the obvious addition of the disparity in power between men and women. So that would be quite a sophisticated paragraph at GCSE level. So use this as your structure if you're trying to push yourself a little bit. Okay? So again, you may want to leave this slide of the video up whilst you're trying to write your response. Just one more slide, and that is about how to submit your work. And another picture of my cats, because I feel like you're all scared about the idea of an assessment. Please don't be, it's fine. So that's my cat, cats, plural. They're cuddling in the shape of a heart, which I think is adorable, because we all know my crazy cat lady. So, you're going to submit your work via assignments. If you are someone that's still struggling with teams, do not worry. Please drop me an email to let me know, and I'm happy to support you. Equally, if you're a little bit overwhelmed with English at the moment, or just the situation is really challenging for us all, please just email me and I'm happy to help you with anything. we all need to make sure we're looking after ourselves. So if you're struggling and you're not quite sure how to begin, please feel like you can get in touch with me. I'm always happy to help. You've had the pleasure of seeing my face this time. Are you impressed with my technological genius? Because I certainly am. I'm missing all of your faces and hope you're staying safe and taking care. See you soon, hopefully.